This is Rosen Institute's Your Law Firm, where Lee Rosen and Ned Days cover management, marketing, finance, and new technologies for building the practice you deserve. Rosen Institute members received this episode early, as well as exclusive segments on streamlining communication within your law firm, an answer to a member question about how the increased use of AI is going to play out in the legal industry, and this week's episodes on Vision Quest, your chance to reset, to refocus, and to finally build the practice and the life that you actually want. Get access to everything you're missing at roseninstitute.com/join. Here's Lee Rosen.
It's good to be with you today from Glasgow, Scotland. Now, Glasgow is not Edinburgh. Edinburgh is a city that you hear a lot about. I think it's the most visited large city in Scotland. Glasgow is not Edinburgh. Edinburgh feels like a small city with a theme park in the middle. It's got a castle up on top of the hill, and it's usually filled with tourists, which means it has very good restaurants, lots of great shopping, nice hotels, plenty of terrific places for wandering and spending money, and the city is just endlessly entertaining. It's not unusual to come around a corner and happen upon a Scottish guy standing there in a kilt playing the bagpipes. The whole experience in Edinburgh is a little like walking up and down Main Street in the Magic Kingdom. It's really nice in a very touristy sort of way. Glasgow, on the other hand, it's more of a real city. It's not huge, but it's more real. It's more businessy. It's more real life. It's a little more scruffy around the edges. You can find most of what a tourist wants to see in Glasgow, but it's spread out all across the city. And for a tourist, it's more of a hop-on, hop-off bus sort of city than a wander down Main Street kind of visit. Would I hang out in Glasgow on my first visit to Scotland? Well, probably not. It would be my second choice compared to Edinburgh. But at this point, we have now spent a lot of time in Scotland, more than 6 months over the past 10 years. So it was great to finally come to Glasgow and explore it a little bit and become a little more familiar with it. And ultimately, I'm glad that we did.
It's time for your tech tip. Believe it or not, when I was about 10 years old, I took sailing lessons. This is not as old money upper crust as it sounds. I am from Jacksonville, after all, not Nantucket. For a couple of weeks over the summer, the other aquatic tykes and I would basically attempt not to capsize small boats in the shallow cove behind the marina. On particularly exciting days, we would set sail, and I use that term very loosely, from the boathouse in the cove to the restaurant at the main boat dock on the river for lunch. This took what felt like about 12 hours, but was probably more like 45 minutes. I just looked up the route on Google Maps, and my best guess is that the trip was maybe a quarter of a mile tops. But we felt like little Magellans, exploring the globe, circumnavigating the earth, and asking our mothers to put sunscreen on the spots we couldn't reach before we left the house. I remember one trip like it was yesterday. After the first 11 hours, give or take, of our voyage, we rounded the bend, beheld the sprawling St. John's River before us, and I could see the marina proper where a lunch of chicken fingers awaited this particularly buoyant little sailor. And it was at that moment I had one of the most traumatizing experiences of my short little life. Right next to our vessel, I saw a giant gray hump emerge from the water, a creature nearly the length of our little dinghy. So horrible, even the saltiest of sailors would immediately have lost his sea legs. So close I could have touched it, so close I could feel the spray from its nostrils when the infernal beast let out a breath. It was, of course, a manatee. If you are not familiar with manatees, they are large, very plump, completely herbivorous creatures that are possibly the slowest mammals on Earth. Google tells me their top speed is 19 miles per hour in short bursts. I'm no expert, but I think the only way you would get a manatee going 19 miles per hour is to drop one from an airplane. They're like big gray Labradors. Very curious, very friendly, and very, very slow. But to 10-year-old me, it was like a kraken had emerged from depths unknown, hell-bent on dragging us to a watery grave. If I wasn't such a constipated child from an all-chicken finger diet, I probably would have soiled myself on the spot. My shipmate and I were terrified. We yelled, but there was nobody around with easy access to a harpoon or depth charge. We were on our own and would likely be devoured or at the very least sniffed by the monster in short order unless we could keep our wits about us. We put everything we knew about sailing into practice. We pushed our little ship to its limits. We tacked, we jibed, we shrieked, we cried little 10-year-old tears, and by the grace of God, we must have gone faster than 19 miles per hour because we made it safely to the pier. I was shaken. Not shaken enough to put me off my lunch of chicken fingers, but shaken nonetheless. Now, I doubt that anything nearly as bone-chilling has happened to you, but I will admit running a practice does have some occasionally terrifying and unexpected challenges. The associate you just hired ghosted you on the first day of work. The employee who has been with you for 5 years just got a DUI. The price of your annual software subscription has tripled, and unless you are willing to move everything in the next 48 hours, you are paying it. Your office scanner has been saving everything to an unsecured folder accessible on the web for the past 3 years. Sometimes you can anticipate the type of problems you will run into and come up with a plan for how you will respond. But the most worrying situations, and the ones where we tend to overreact, I'm using the royal we because I would never overreact, of course, often aren't inherently dangerous or disastrous. It's really just that we are so unprepared. Rationally, I know that the manatee can't extract my soul through his beady little eyes, but in the heat of the moment, I'm not so sure. Now, unlike yours truly, where my life really was hanging in the balance, you probably don't need to spear an aquatic demon right away. Because you have the luxury of a few minutes of breathing room, I think it's worth considering a framework for how to handle your own figurative manatee attack moments. Those situations where practicing a particular response isn't possible, but practicing how to respond is. The first step is to allow yourself to react, but only a little bit. You don't want to be emotionless, but you do want to start to get a feel for what's emotion and what is reality. Give yourself 5 minutes to not address the problem. Step away, make a coffee, take a quick walk, impulse buy that item on your eBay watch list, whatever. The emotional problem is, I've been blindsided, I've been taken advantage of, I'm going to be embarrassed. The actual problem is, we need to plug a security gap, we need an extra $10,000 for payroll. Step 2 is to reassure yourself and your team. Sometimes you aren't even that concerned, but your team is. Regardless of which is the case, you are the captain and your team is the boat full of 10-year-olds. When something goes wrong suddenly, you need to be setting the tone, even if you are faking it. Your composure will buy everybody time. We aren't performing surgery, so it's generally not the case that anybody's life is on the line. And as hard as it may be in some circumstances, I would also look at delaying the blame or punishment if appropriate. If somebody needs to be ejected from the premises immediately for everyone's safety, that is a different matter. But we often want to lash out at the person who made the mistake or the person delivering the bad news. If it's appropriate, treat this like the all-hands-on-deck event it is and worry about corrective measures later. Step 3 is where we actually assess what is at stake. Ideally, you want to identify the scope of the problem, that is, how widespread or localized it is. Is this something that has happened once? Is it ongoing? Is it baked into things that are going to be happening in the future? You want to assess the impact. That is, who or what does it actually affect? Is it just you, your whole team, one client, all your clients? Who is being impacted? And lastly, a timeline. How quickly do you need to act? Sometimes it is literally today. Sometimes you get a little more wiggle room. This doesn't mean you can wait around to figure out a fix, but it means you may not need to take immediate action. And the final step is to respond with the smallest possible solution. When we are panicking, we love grand gestures. You're fired. We're moving to Clio. I'm selling the house and putting the money on this weekend's game. Resist the urge to go big and determine what the smallest possible step you can take is to put your firm in the clear. Your fix does not need to be perfect or comprehensive. If something is broken, make it safe first, and you can worry about making it better later. And communicate what you are doing and what is happening to everybody who needs to know. Making sure that they know the priority is the smallest solution keeps them in the loop, and it prevents them from getting overwhelmed. And as much as this will be the last thing on your mind, keep notes and document what is going on so that you can account for today's crisis in tomorrow's system. So no, you cannot anticipate or prepare for the many, many ways your team, your tech, your vendors, or your clients will intentionally or unintentionally sink your ship. But you can practice a framework for dealing with a crisis. Fire drills are not about educating you on the particulars of a grease fire versus an electrical fire versus a chemical fire. They are about making sure everybody gets out the door quickly and safely, regardless of the circumstances. That is what you need to be practicing. There are going to be disasters where there simply is no plan. There will be ferocious flippered beasts from the murky deep that will catch you by surprise and possibly make you wet yourself, even though they are hardly more dangerous than a golden retriever. You may not have a response, but you can know how to respond. I'm Ned Days, and that's your tech tip.
And now for your moment of concise advice. I get messages from folks in our community that go something like this. I was doing great, the money was rolling in, the business was strong, and then all of a sudden it started falling apart. When I look at them and I ask what happened, the story is often the same, though it comes wrapped in different excuses, or maybe to be more polite, I should call those stories rather than excuses. The lawyers look at me and they tell me that they were doing all kinds of marketing, things like sending out newsletters and hosting events and building their network and running ads, things to stay visible, and it was all working. It was going pretty well, but then for some reason they stopped. Now, they explain that they stopped for a variety of different reasons. Every lawyer has their explanation. Usually it's some variation on the idea of they got distracted. Sometimes by the flood of client work. That's the story quite often, but sometimes it's just because of life. Kids getting older, family needs shifting, the calendar filling up, and before long, their marketing engine, it just wasn't getting any fuel, any attention, any energy. They put the marketing on the back burner and they turned the gas down to zero. Now, at first, they didn't realize that the marketing was fading. They didn't realize that it was slowing down. They just didn't notice. Just like when an airplane engine shuts off, you don't nosedive immediately. The airplane glides. And they were gliding. The revenues stayed reasonably high, and the momentum carried them forward, and they felt like everything was going fine, even without putting the attention into the marketing. But, and this is true for all of us, if you don't restart that engine, the glide, it ends in a crash. That's what happens. So if what I'm describing here is your situation, if you're gliding at this point, well, it's time to restart the engine. It's time to crank it back up. It's time to hit the reset button, to reboot. You've got to get that engine powered up, and you need to accelerate. You need to mash that accelerator. You need to go, go, go now, because if you're drifting, it is past time to get that engine cranked up. And here's the thing, and it's good news. Rebooting, it doesn't mean inventing something new. You don't need to start at zero. It doesn't mean throwing spaghetti at the wall and waiting for some sort of inspiration to come to you. No, at this stage of the game, for you, starting things back up means going back to what you were already doing that worked for you before. You have this track record of marketing success. You've done this at least once. You have a model. You have proven it. You know exactly how your model performs for you. You're not starting at zero because you've been there, you've done that, and you know what it is that works because you have the experience of making it work. You are not reinventing the wheel, and that is a huge advantage. For me, I think the scenario that we're talking about, letting your marketing fade, is a lot like what happens to a lot of us with exercise. Everyone has had that moment where they've let their workout routine slide. At first, you still feel pretty good. You skip the gym for a few weeks, it's no big deal, but months later, you find that you are sluggish, you're out of shape, you get winded climbing the stairs, and you need a solution. So what is the solution? Well, it is not the latest miracle diet or some new fitness gadget. No, you just need to put on your shoes and get out and start doing it. You don't need to go buy some fancy exercise machine. You already know what it is that works for you. It's the same thing that worked before. You show up, you do what you do. Maybe you lift the weights or run the miles or swim the laps. Whatever it is that worked last time and the time before that, you just go back to it. You do it again and you do it consistently. And the next thing you know, your fitness is back to where you want it to be. It's exactly the same with your business. You don't need a miracle. You just need discipline. You need to get back to doing the things that you know drive the results. So Get back to those things. Don't do them just once or twice, do them consistently. And right now, because you've let things slide, you may need to do a little more at first to get that momentum back up. If you used to host one event a year, well, now you may need to host two or maybe three. If you used to post on social media twice a week, well, maybe it's time to do it 4 or 5 times a week until the pipeline fills back up. You get things going by hitting the gas a little harder than usual so that you get that momentum flowing. None of this is a surprise to you. None of this is a big secret that I'm explaining. There's no mystery. You already know exactly what to do because you've done it before. It's easy, it's simple, it's straightforward. You just do it. But, and this may not apply to you, don't overthink it. There's a piece of getting the marketing restarted that is tricky because for some of us, it triggers our ego. This probably isn't you. You're in great shape emotionally. I know you have no trouble with your ego, but for some folks, some other folks, things can get uncomfortable because once you've built something successful, for some folks, it might feel beneath you to go back out and hustle and to sell. You tell yourself something like, at this stage, I should be past this. You start to feel like it's embarrassing that you have to be out there shaking hands and running ads and building connections and doing all of this marketing to sell your services. That sort of conversation happens in the heads of some of us because we have these egos that have just drifted a little bit off course. That little voice in our head says something like, I shouldn't have to do this. That little voice is whispering to you. And that little voice is dangerous. You need to kill that little voice. Beat it to death with the hot fire poker. Kill that little voice because that story will kill you. That ego getting in the way, it can screw up your economic recovery because that conversation, that little voice in your head, that is a nonsensical conversation. Don't let that kind of self-talk go on in your head. You see, we are never beyond marketing and selling and hustling. Never. Marketing is part of the mix for every business, for every law firm, for every professional services firm in the world. The biggest, most powerful firms, they still have partners pounding the pavement, cultivating relationships, bringing in the work. That's the machine. It never stops. If you stop, you fall. If you stop, the plane lands hard, too hard. So watch out if you find yourself hesitating to restart the machine. I have seen it too often. Truth be told, I've been there. I've done that. I've let my ego get between me and the marketing. And when that happens, what is standing in your way isn't complexity. No, it's pride. And it's fear, fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of the work, pride that says you've arrived and you shouldn't have to do it anymore, but that is simply not true. The truth is you've done it before and you can do it again, and now you've got an advantage that you didn't have the first time. Proof. You know exactly what works. So here is your reboot. Stop telling yourself the story about why it all slipped away. Stop overcomplicating it with a dozen new ideas or strategies. Stop pretending that you are above the hustle. Start doing what worked for you before. Do it right now and double down on it until the momentum roars back. You don't need to reinvent yourself. You just need to hit the gas. You need to get that airplane flying and keep it up there in the air. That's your moment of concise advice. Wrapping up from Glasgow, thanks for spending a few minutes with me and Ned today. We hope you have a great weekend and an even better week next week. Keep plugging away, moving forward, and getting things done. You're on the right track. You'll get there, I promise. We're all in this together, and together we build better practices through better marketing, better management, and better technology. Until next time, I'm Lee Rosen.
Thanks for listening to Your Law Firm. Subscribe to the Friday File at roseninstitute.com and join thousands of lawyers focused on working on, instead of in their practices. You'll find safe, successful, actionable approaches for transforming your firm.
Sign up for free at roseninstitute.com.